Good morning, and we are live on YouTube, but we're going to bring in our Facebook groups. We've got Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons, and we've got Scott Kennedy Sports. We'll bring those in, and then we'll get started. And good morning. This is the Falcons Podcast. It is unfortunately another losing Monday morning, but on the bright side, the Falcons have now entered the top 10 in the 2023 draft. They're sitting there. They're sitting there as the number 10 seed with the number 10 pick with the Saints. If the Saints can upset the Buccaneers tonight, they move up to number 9. So teetering on, this is just the way the NFL loves it, teetering on either the playoffs or a top 7 pick in the NFL draft because you're 5-8. Nick, how are you doing this morning? My name's Scott Kennedy. I go by Scout Kennedy on pretty much everywhere else on social media and the like, and that's Nick Kendell. Nick, how are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm just exhausted from this Broncos team, but excited to see the all the college playoffs and how the bowl games play out, and getting excited for the NFL draft. We're starting to make progress towards that, no doubt. Starting to dig into some of the players here and getting the announcements. You know, it's always sometimes a little bit of a shock this time of year where some guys go back that you weren't expecting, but it'll be a lot of fun. And, hence your name, Scout Kennedy, and how we kind of first got linked up on this. It was very draft oriented. So even though our football teams are skidding right now, got some fun stuff ahead.
This is one of those years where you really didn't need a playoff for college football. I got a 1 and a 2. Let's just play them. Let's be done with it. You know, I kind of joked. I'm like, college football where they don't give an F about your conference championship. You know, it's like they didn't have to play last weekend.
No. I mean, USC did, right?
Like I know, USC but it's like they only could lose by playing. You know, they would have been, if they didn't play, they would have been in. Mm-hmm. You know, which is unfortunate. Where Ohio State didn't play and now they're in. You know, that's unfortunate that they treat it that way. But again, it's their playoff. They can do whatever they want to. Let's say good morning. We're going to talk some college. The only college football we're going to talk from here on out is talking about players headed to the pros. Michael Ronquillo says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. Appreciate you. Joe Cannon says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Do I smell a quarterback change on the horizon? There's something in the air. There is, Joe. There is something on the air. RC Plane Builder says, good morning. Good morning to you as well. And I just want to remind everybody, I've been meaning to do this, is at the beginning, if you don't want to, watch us the whole time, you can go to falconspodcast.com and you will have all of your listening options up there. Spreaker, iTunes, all of the other different ones. Enough of them that I can't even name them all. There's about 6 different ways you can listen to this after the fact. Just go to falconspodcast.com and you'll see the list of different ways that you can listen to us after the fact. So I titled the show around, I was going to just talk about it as let's title the show what the Falcons are doing, offseason plans, where they're really doing. But then Arthur Smith changed his tune. We've seen him before when he's asked, even in the preseason, where he shot down any talk of a quarterback change, sometimes pretty snarkily. This time, when he was asked about a quarterback change, his tune was a little different. Let's listen in real quick.
Sir, are you planning on making a change at quarterback?
Well, Mike, it's a unique time. We're getting ready to go in the bye. So we'll evaluate everything. Every job's open.
I guess at this point, what goes into that decision as you've seen 13 weeks?
We just finished the game. Obviously, got some private thoughts, but we need to decompress. We need to meet as a staff. And there's a lot of things sure we've been close, but we got to evaluate everything. We got to get back over the hump, get back in the winning category. And so there's a lot that needs to be evaluated, talked about, and discussed. And I understand the questions right now. It's just the game just ended, but the bye's coming at a good time for us.
It is actually. It is. That's what 13 games without a bye. Yeah. That's the bye is coming at a good time. Wasn't there a season where there were 2 byes because there was an odd number of teams or something? You had 2 bye weeks. I feel like there was. Maybe that was college. But it's 13 straight games. The injuries have taken a toll on this team, Nick. So let's get immediately, and we can talk about the rest of the team in a minute. Let's immediately get to his comments there. That was a striking change in how he has acted after being asked about the quarterback situation. For him, that was a big deal. So, what were your thoughts on that?
I think that it's happening. I think it's time. I think they're going to make the move. Marcus Mariota has played pretty poorly the last few weeks, in my opinion. And you are sitting there at, 5-8 now on the season? Yeah, 5-8. Don't kid yourself where you're at right now. If Mariota was playing better football and you were losing these games, maybe there's a different conversation, but you are probably entering the evaluation mode. And now that you have a bye week built in here to get the other quarterback ready, and you are sitting there with a top 10 pick, you have some hard questions to ask. You're going to be in a position where you might be tempted by a quarterback, and all the information you can gather on Desmond Ridder is going to help inform that decision. So it's probably time. Again, if Mariota was playing better, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but you're sitting there 5-8. He's not playing great. And this team is built to at least consider the quarterback option right now, especially with how much cash you have coming around here. You can pay some free agents to jumpstart that quarterback and build what that guy does well. He's a deep ball thrower. You can go out there and pay a speed option. He's a runner. You can go out there and pay a left guard or another tight end or a running back or something like that. So I think it's probably time to make the move and start that evaluation process so that way you can make the most informed decision possible this offseason.
I agree. Again, you're 5-8, and you've got a chance to clear about $12 million if Marcus Mariota is not your quarterback next year. And that doesn't necessarily mean Desmond Ridder will be, but you're also now knocking on the door of being able to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft. You're up in the top 10. It might take a top 5 pick, which isn't out of the question at this point, because like last year, the Falcons' strength of schedule is very, very poor, which in draft parlay means it's very, very good. So if they're tied, they get the tiebreaker. So there were like 4 teams last year that finished 7-10, 4 or 5. And the Falcons picked first out of all those because their strength of schedule was the easiest, and they still only went 7-10. It's that way again this year. Their strength of schedule isn't very good.
No.
And they've lost some games and have dropped to 5-8. Carl comes in. Good morning, Carl. Comes in on Facebook. He says, very dissatisfied with the way the Falcons played yesterday. I don't understand why Ridder is not getting a chance. I don't know that Arthur Smith is the answer for the Falcons. Yeah, I said during the game yesterday, this looked like the first game, this one in Carolina, where it felt like it was kind of the team we thought they were going to be, where they were just outmatched. And, we started thinking about this team because last year's team was 7-10. It was a bad team. That's what gave me hope for Arthur Smith and Dean Pease, is they won 7 games with smoke and mirrors last year against a really easy schedule, which I said. So where are the upgrades, Nick? Where did this team get better from one year to the next? Name me a couple players you think that have made this team what you would think would be upgrades over last year.
You talking about players that themselves have improved, or new players
Just
in the
players
system?
From like last year on the starting 22, I said there might be 5 NFL players on the starting 22. This year they got better in several
build around
spots.
who like deserve.
So I'm trying to lead you into this, but basically I'm setting you up for the injuries on the players. They got better at edge. Arnold Ebiketie out. They got better on the defensive line. Taquan Graham made a leap from one step to the next. Out. They went and signed Casey Hayward over Fabian Moreau, who I saw on someone else's highlight yesterday, getting toasted yesterday. Out. They got better at left guard. Eli Wilkinson coming in for Jalen Mayfield. Out. It goes on and on and on, where this team's not very deep. Yep. It's not all that talented. Again, you're talking about $98 million on the field compared to an available 210 because of dead cap and injuries. $98 million. That's last crazy. By a lot. Yeah. By a lot. I mean, we're the Oakland A's of the NFL. And but baseball's different. but as far as money goes, we're last. The Falcons are last. Yet they've still been in every game, every single game, 1-score games, and they've come up short a few times against other bad teams. The Steelers look terrible. I mean, they didn't look good yesterday, Nick.
They're not.
I've been very pleased with Arthur Smith on the whole, considering what he's got to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And some other guys out there as well, Drake or Kyle Pitts out. So you are missing.
Well, that's a downgrade. When your number one goes from Kyle Pitts to a rookie and Drake London. Yep. Kyle Pitts was better last year than Drake London is this year. Now you've only got one of them out.
Yep. So it's a team that's kind of fallen apart, and you hit on it in terms of the dead cap impacting the depth. This team hasn't hit the wave of injuries like the Broncos have, who are just, voodoo doll level decimated as far as injuries this year. But you are dealing with, one hand behind your back to start the year with all the dead cap. And now that injuries are starting to pile up at this point, Arthur Smith right about the bye week coming at the right time. But now that injuries are piling up, the depth that this team lacks because of the dead cap is really starting to be exposed. So luckily, you've gotten, I guess, this far, and also you kind of know where you're at this season. I mean, you can just looking at the tankathon right now, the Falcons sitting there at 10, but you're at 5-8. The Carolina Panthers are at 4-8, and guess what? If you guys, all those teams above you with a one less win, you end up getting tied with them, you win the strength of schedule. I mean, this Falcons team could propel themselves into the top 5.
The Panthers, you might have them based on division record, because I think the Falcons are 1-3 in the division, and the Panthers have been better than that. Because it was head-to-head was a split. But, I'm looking out there, and, Amir Abdullah, who I've been a fan of based on, I like the scrappy guys that come in, picked up off of waivers and come in and do a job. But he was a guy who was picked up off of waivers and is your starting, one of your starting interior linemen. When you rotate in, I'm like, I follow these guys every day, and I can't tell you for certain. I can tell you where Quentin Bell, who I must have written about him at one point. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, I'm looking on the field, and you've got Timmy Horn, Jaleel Johnson, and Quentin Bell as your front three on your defensive line. I always think of Major League, Nick, who the F are these guys? Who are these effing guys? Those are your front three on the defensive line. You wonder why you're having trouble stopping somebody? Yeah. I mean, this roster, the credit I give to the players on this roster for the fight and the win, even winning 5 games up until this point, and the coaching staff is immense. I think they've played really hard and really well. They're just outmanned. Yeah, outmanned and limited in terms of the drop back passing game. Anytime I feel like you have to function in that, the offensive line doesn't look nearly as good, and Marcus Mariota is not very good there, and the lack of weapons on the outside becomes pretty obvious. But yep, it's a team that multiple directions you can go. Definitely arriving a year late, but the record is starting to regress to about where we expected it. This team is starting to look like how we thought it would be this year, given the lack of resources. So again, hats off to Arthur Smith and all the coaches for how they've outperformed expectations so far this season. Not to, dog them. They're out there doing their best, and they've looked much more competent than we expected. We were expecting a top team picking in the top 3. And they're much more fighting them than that. So will be interesting to see how they finish the stretch. And even if they are out of the playoffs, it does seem like, what were you sniffing the air before the episode started, or licking the finger in the wind? The winds have changed a bit. I think it might be a Desmond Ridder season in Atlanta. And talking about Desmond Ridder, Nathan Floyd, appreciate you coming in, Nathan, posted this comment when we were talking about the quarterback change. He says his body, when we were playing the video, says the body language looks like disappointment from Arthur Smith, not just from that game, but from the decision at hand. Losing 3 in a row. And I said this at the beginning of the year, Nathan, when he was getting snarky with the local reporters. I'm like, dude, this is the easy part. This is what's it going to be like when you've lost 3 or 4 in a row with this team? Because I don't care who's coaching this team. It's just, this team's not built well enough to go 11-6. Thank you, Thomas Dimitrov. It's going to happen, and a little resignation, a little humility. It's not the worst thing in the world. And like I said, these guys, to me, it's almost like having. I don't want to hire an offensive coordinator or from Ohio State or Alabama or USC where they're going to out talent 99 teams out of 100 that they play against. This team is learning how to coach. They're learning how to scout and evaluate talent. They're handicapped. They're having to do things better than everybody else just to stay competitive. Now, when the playing field gets leveled next year and you're going and playing with $100 million in salary cap room and you've got another top 10 pick, which they'll probably take another pass catcher with, a bunch of high picks, because it's not just the first round. They can get players to help. Then this team should accelerate fairly quickly. But the decision at hand with Desmond Ridder, because now, again, you are getting to the point where, do we want to use this first round pick on a quarterback? You need to know. You really need to. You need to know what you've got in Ridder. Give him 4 games. Maybe you don't need to use it on a quarterback, but maybe you do. The opportunity shouldn't come around again for a while after this season. You should be hovering at 500 or better for the near future.
Yeah.
So this could be your last chance at getting a pick in the top 10 for a while. You're hoping anyway.
Yeah, things can go off the rails. Be careful of expectations,
I know.
said the sad Bronco fan. But you're 100% correct. Luckily, I will say at this point, Scott, I don't think there's a wide receiver worthy of a top 10 pick in this upcoming draft that I would swing on.
So
I think there were last season, but not this year. Garrett Wilson, man, he's looked incredible since they made the switch with the Jets with Mike White out there. Jake London's still going to be good, but I think Garrett Wilson was the best wide receiver in the last class. But I digress. Mark Lendemode coming in here saying, howdy, Scott and Nick. Rage quitting indeed. That's how I feel about the darn Broncos here recently. We appreciate you. And we got Colin coming in saying, when did this become about the Falcons? We always do the Falcons show on
Colin's
Monday
not
morning.
paying attention to his notifications. So, every Monday at 9 a.m., Colin, that's okay. Take a sip of coffee. We'll see you at Mile High Huddle in about 20 minutes.
Yeah. But talking about the draft here, I think you are in a position where it's going to be probably defense the way it sets up. I think, sitting there in the top 10, there are a number of edge rushers and defensive tackles that have a chance to fall to the Falcons there. So those are the names that I'd be keeping an eye on. Maybe a cornerback. There are some good cornerbacks as well, but those are the spots I would be the most intrigued by. The one that throws a wrench in it is Caleb McGarry. What happens with him? Is he, is he franchise tagged? Then do you take? Probably not, but it's always an option.
No, McGarry's playing well. He's not playing $20 million well. Come on.
Sometimes you use that though as a negotiation tactic to extend the window.
I don't want to risk the fact that he might say yes.
He might.
Of course he would. Oh, you want to tag me? Okay, great. I mean, no, he's not a $20 million right tackle.
I think you are going to be. It's going to be eye-popping what he ends up getting.
That's fine. Let him go then. Okay.
Let him go. That's a conversation.
I mean, if he ends up with 6 years, $90 million, 5 years, 90, and he's at 17, 18 a pop, but congratulations, dude.
Yeah,
I know you had a really good contract here. Good for you. Bye. That
makes things a little harder, of course, for you, and then it changes the conversation. Maybe you talk about a Paris Johnson then in that regard, who has some guard and tackle ability as well. But I don't know. You're going to have a lot of cap space, especially if you're playing a rookie quarterback next year. You might live with it for a season. I know you hate it, but I think it's certainly something they are mulling over right now in Atlanta.
Wouldn't just be for a season, though. You don't franchise somebody unless you want to keep them for usually a little bit longer than that. I mean, that's like it's a year to get them locked down. I mean, you franchise someone, you want to be a franchise player,
or you make them prove it again. If somebody who's you haven't seen them do it consistently, okay, let's see if that was a mirage. Do it again. Obviously, it's expensive though.
Monty coming in. And Antonio Langford says, "Good morning, guys." On Facebook, appreciate you coming in. It says, "Good morning, guys. It's Ridder time." I think you're right. I think it is. And Monty comes in. He says, "Will the Falcons start Ridder?" That's where things are kind of blowing this right now. Arthur Smith has basically said, as long as we're in it, we're in this. We're trying to win games. We're trying to make a play. Well, you've lost 3 in a row. You've lost 3 in a row. You're 5-8. You haven't looked very good doing it. And your play calling tells me you do not trust your quarterback. You don't trust your passing game. Now, let me say the quarterback, but let me not put it all on him, because it's a receiving group that's not going to wow anybody. Your number one weapon at tight end is out. Your offensive line, when we've talked about, can they drop back and do pure pass sets, is a little bit questionable, So when they're running the ball and coming right at you, they're really good. But the passing game, when it's 3rd and 12, the end of the game, second to last possession, I think they get after what should have been the go-ahead touchdown, they get called for a bogus holding penalty on the edge after Cordell Patterson's already in the end zone. They're first and goal from the 20, running play. And it might have been from the 25, like first and goal from the 25, running play. Man, it's basically let's not do something stupid for 2 plays and then we'll take a shot into the end zone. So that's that you don't trust your passing game at all out there. That speaks volumes to me. Nathan says, I don't think they're planning on bringing McGarry back. I would absolutely talk to him about, here's 5 years and 60 with 30 guaranteed. What do you think? In the 12 million range, because he's probably on about 2.5 right now. Because he's on the 4th year deal from the 4th year of his rookie contract, and he was at the end. His yearly cash is 1.8. His cap hit this year is 3.2. Dead cap of 2, and he would have had a 13 million option this year. Would have had a 13 million option this year if they had decided to pick it up. They didn't. I don't know. What's 15? Now you got me thinking about it. 15 on that option. Would he be worth 15 a year? What is the top salaries? Cap hit. They do by average salaries when they're doing. I would think they do all positions, and it's offensive line. It's not even tackle. I don't think 23, 23, 22, 22. 19.7. So a franchise tag on Caleb McGarry would be 21.5. No, I'm not doing it.
And there's also different options of the franchise tag, right? There's the exclusive, there's the non-exclusive, which can bump it down, which then somebody can trade you a pick if they want to sign him. So you can finagle it a tad. But looking at the money here, I can't see them actually looking just how the data is. The top 5 tackles in this class, it's probably going to come out to about 21.5, like you said. So I think he's probably going to ask for about 17.5. You guys will probably offer about 14, which is the Jack Conklin deal. That would put him at the 22nd tackle. So I think you probably come out somewhere about 15 per year over 4 years.
That's what I said. So, here 15 or 60 over 60 mil. What did I say? 60 over 4 with 30 guaranteed.
Yep. That seems pretty fair. Maybe he'll settle
turns into a 2-year, $15 million a year deal.
Yep.
And then, then you've got options.
And with that, you also, again, this comes back to the rookie cost-controlled quarterback thing. You can splurge a little bit on the offensive line if you're not paying huge money to the quarterback and et cetera, et cetera. So maybe it's something you do consider. No doubt the tag is expensive. It gives you a little bit more flexibility if his play does regress. Right now, I'm a little bit gun-shy in any contract, given what Denver's dealing with Russell Wilson, but definitely an option. And we got Nathan coming in saying the last play of the game was a terrible read and horrible throw from Mariota. Yeah, he's fallen off a bit. It was definitely an ugly game for him. And congrats, Nathan, on your Georgia Bulldogs there, man. What a absolute butt whooping they put on the Louisiana State Tigers. Oof.
Every
Crazy.
ball that goes down the field for him floats.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about, you want to make a duck reference to the former Oregon Duck, but you can tell when it comes out of hand, it has too much air under it. It rises up. It floats. You can tell, okay, that's overthrown, but it's not overthrown with velocity. It's overthrown with trajectory because it's not a ton of zip on it. And you see it happen a lot. And the last play, and honestly, Nathan, I didn't even know as soon as they didn't get the first down, or, they get the ball on the 4 as soon as they pin him on the 4. I was like, well, this one's over. I mean, they don't have the passing game to move the ball down in a field goal range. Not enough time. I didn't even see it. So to me, that last interception was like, meh. That was like throwing one at the end of a half. It doesn't, from that type of position, it doesn't really matter. That game was over. It didn't. I don't think it changed the spread. I think it was only like 1.5, and it ended up being 3. But it was 35, so it may have changed the over-under. So there are some bettors that were pissed that he didn't run it all the way into the end zone and went out of bounds at the 3, because I think that would have changed. I think that would have given the over in that game interesting. Meech Jones coming in. Appreciate you coming in, Meech. Love that picture. Says, good morning, brotherhood. Good morning. Good morning. And Rusty Harness says, good morning. We know Mariota's not the one and haven't seen Ridder to judge. My question is, do they hit free agency next year for a quarterback of the future? It is nearly impossible to obtain a quarterback, a franchise quarterback of the future in free agency. It is almost impossible. What's the closest we have seen from something like that? Kirk Cousins, and he was wildly overpaid.
Yeah.
Normally, you're going to have to give up a ton of draft picks, or you're going to have to draft really high, or you're going to have to give up a ton of draft picks to draft really high. And this is one of the things, Rusty, why I was so adamant about the Falcons taking Justin Fields, is because he was there. He was available at 4, and they don't come. The quarterbacks, franchise quarterbacks, aren't available to you in the draft very often. And to go and get one that you don't draft yourself is expensive. It is Trey Lance, 3 first-round draft picks, expensive. It is Russell Wilson, 3 draft picks, including 2 firsts, and 3 players for a 34-year-old, expensive. It's expensive. So the Falcons are losing enough now that they're going to be in play to, say, take Will Levis. Could be there, or maybe I package next year's first and I can get up and maybe move from 8 to 2 and get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud.
Yeah, the Falcons might be in for business. Or excuse me, the Seahawks, they might be picking pretty darn high with the Broncos. I guess how close the Broncos are, a game behind the Bears, but flip one of those games and Denver has the number 2 overall pick.
Yeah,
you're going to get a chance.
I feel better about the Bears getting another win than the Broncos right now with the remaining schedules and the way that teams are playing.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the Bears end of schedule. I will say that the Broncos defense is going to keep them in games just like they were yesterday, and we'll get a chance to talk about the Broncos.
They got the Chiefs coming up twice. They got the Chargers. I mean, it's
the other 2 games though are trash. The Rams and the Cardinals are horrible right now. So are the Broncos. It's a trash bowl.
Yeah,
but absolutely. And we got a couple people coming in. Rusty, thank you for the comment. We also got Dwayne coming in saying good morning. Scott and Nick, first time I'm able to catch you live. Well, thank you, Dwayne. Hopefully we're just getting started here. I mean, we've been here all season, but we do not go away once the season ends. We're entering our prime of the season. Scott's going to be traveling to these end of year bowl games. I'm going to be stuck out here in Seattle grinding the tape in the dungeon here. Got to get multiple monitors set up to watch these games. But we also got Dwayne continuing on saying no upside to Mariota. Time to move on while we got a chance to still make the playoffs to see what the future holds with Ridder. I think that probably with this loss, the feasible playoffs probably out of the picture. I mean, anything can happen with, what is it? You have 4 games left because it's a bye week for you. So you have 4 games left on the schedule for the Falcons.
Yep, they're 5-8, 4 games left. They went till week 14 to get a bye.
Yep. This is evaluation time. And then you have a week to get Ridder ready to get all the reps to do install for 2 weeks, which is big, get him comfortable out there with the first team reps, the center snap exchange, all the mesh point stuff too, that the Falcons like to do. Those, getting him fully ready. And those 4 games, you at least have a somewhat of a sample size, how competent you need to be next year, or how competent you could be with him next year, how aggressive you need to be on the quarterback. It's a good time to get make that evaluation.
So, but I agree. Throw out even the playoffs part. There is still a chance to make the playoffs. And can this team be better right now with Desmond Ridder? Can they be better? Yes. I mean, this team isn't winning games because of Marcus Mariota. He is being held back based on his limitations. Can you do some more things with Desmond Ridder? Maybe. So this team could feasibly get better in 2 weeks than they are right now, let alone in 4 weeks at the end of the year, where you've got like I said, a big decision to make on what you want to do with this, what looks like to be another top 10 draft pick. Do you go out? Do you need to go out and spend it on a quarterback, or do you have him and you need to bolster? I mean, odds are the 3rd round guy ain't it. That's the way the odds are. Normally you're going to have to use a 1st round on a guy. But I thought Desmond Ridder had 1st round tools last year, and the quarterbacks just fell off the charts.
Yeah.
The way things fell, and you got a steal in the 3rd round. So let's see. I'm interested, Dwayne. I really want to see him these last 4 weeks myself. And talking about the quarterback, I didn't even mention Deshaun Watson. Trying to go get a 25-year-old Pro Bowl quarterback gets really expensive. And Jason said the Broncos and Browns just overpaid. That's the cost, though. That's the cost. The Broncos aren't talking about overpaying. if Russell Wilson's playing at a Pro Bowl level. Doesn't even come up. Not even mentioned. So that's what's interesting. And Jamal's coming in and says, good morning. Good morning, Jamal. We still have 2 division games, Nathan says, left on the schedule. A big one tonight with the Aints in Tampa. We need a ton of luck, but it could still happen. Absolutely. Everybody else is so bad. And what's interesting, though, Nathan, is you're just as likely to finish last. You're just as likely to finish last in the division, maybe more likely to finish last in the division as you are to win it. But if the Saints win this, the Falcons fall to 3rd behind the Saints. Still have the Saints left to play, still have Tampa left to play. It could happen. So on that note, we're at 30 minutes. It is 9:30. We're going to hop on over to Mile High Huddle to see Colin over on Broncos for breakfast and see some of y'all too. So appreciate you checking in with us again. Like I said, if you want to listen or catch up on some past episodes, you can check us out at falconspodcast.com. We will be here Wednesday, where I really want to get into, Nick, buy or sell. The Falcons have about 35 free agents on their 53-man roster. Who should they bring back? Who are some of the guys you should consider bringing back? Because there's going to be a lot of decisions to make. So I want to go through that and say buy or sell on these guys. And obviously you can't sell them. It's, buy or walk. So we will be back Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Nick, I will see you over at Mile High Huddle. For the rest of y'all, we'll see you next time.